US police is trained with the IDF in Israel. You see the police protecting a car that's insulting us while we are peacefully protesting, listening to us speak. This is what it looks like when the US police is trained with the IDF in my country. Okay, so
take them to jail.
So to start with, I want all of us to recognize that we're standing here today on stolen land. This acknowledgement is to bring into focus the continued struggle of indigenous people against colonial occupation, which is the nature of the oppression of the Palestinian people and land. Understanding this connection and the imperative that all indigenous people should be free is a truth that many Americans, especially my peers at Yale, fail to reckon with and address. Also, the demands of the international community in the recent weeks are directly connected to the continued fight against police brutality against Black Americans, which is a struggle against systemic racism and violence that has been an issue long before the eruption of protests in 2020. The U.S. sends Israel $3.8 billion in military aid every year, while also training its military that it's committing these crimes against the indigenous people. This number increases when we include other imperialist crimes committed by the American empire in many other places, from Colombia to Palestine to Cuba to Vietnam to New Haven, and the list keeps going on. Our goal here is not to protest once, not to protest twice, and not to protest 3 times. Our goal is to end the imperialist violence and terrorism worldwide.
Yes, we will!
We want to create a collective liberation movement that stands against racial injustice and policing worldwide, from Minneapolis, Colombia to Palestine.
Yes, we will!
Today I am representing Yalees for Palestine, a student-led campaign that is partnered with Yale Jews for Palestine, whose support my people and I are forever grateful for. The support from our Jewish brothers and sisters at Yale and beyond Yale is extremely important because the occupation of Palestine is being committed in the name of Judaism, and further, the history of oppression and persecution that Jewish people have faced all over the world is a centuries-long struggle that predates the Israeli occupation. As Yale students, we condemn the injustice, genocide, and ethnic cleansing occurring in Palestine. We emphasize this is not a political issue. Israel forces have been acting in clear violation of international law and have been conducting egregious human rights violations against the Palestinian people. As students at one of the most privileged academic institutions in the whole world, we must call out injustice wherever it may occur. We stand against the discriminatory application of the law that strips Palestinians of basic human rights. We stand against the violent expulsion of those living under occupation in Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. We stand against the apartheid and the persecution of Palestinians and stand for peace and freedom of Palestinian people from violent military occupation. As future global leaders at such a leading academic institution, we are privileged. We are privileged and have the responsibility to challenge and change the misleading narratives around Palestine and Israel, and we are starting with Yale. So hear me out, Yale. First, we demand that Yale make a public statement condemning Israel's use of violence against Palestinians, expansion of ethnic cleansing, and enforcement of apartheid. Second, we demand that Yale end its direct contribution to the Israeli colonial project by divesting from businesses, grants, and investments that profit from the illegal occupation of Palestine. Third, we demand constant efforts from Yale to find the academic exclusion. If Yale really wants to work on diversity in the college, they need to hire more faculty and more students of color, including Palestinians. Lastly, we call upon the Connecticut states to cut the $3.8 billion fund invested yearly to the Israeli army. Taxpayers in Connecticut alone are spending $80 million each year on military aid to Israel that support the murder of civilians and violations of international law. Is this really what the citizens of New Haven and this whole country want to spend their money on, when it's clear that this money can be used to improve the healthcare system or the education system or other areas that the US government has failed to provide to its citizens except for the rich? Now, the ceasefire in Gaza does not mean our struggle is over. Less than 6 hours after the ceasefire, Israeli soldiers attacked worshippers Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is only one small evidence that the fight was not just against the violence of this month. I want every single one of you to remember that Israel's promise of ceasefire does not stop the expansion of illegal settlements, military checkpoints, settler violence, racist laws, mass detainment of underage and innocent Palestinian children, the apartheid wall, and land and resource destruction. It is also meant to give a false promise of peace and signal to the international community that they can take their eyes off of Israel's crime, which we will not. I call upon each one of you to use this moment as a starting point for a longer struggle. It is imperative that we keep protesting, divesting from companies that support Israel, sharing posts on social media, having conversations to challenge your students, family, friends, and communities. It is not a matter if Palestine will be free. It is a matter of when Palestine will be free. And I want each one of you to commit to continue boycotting, continue protesting, and continue chanting, because no one is free until we are all free.